Welcome back, and thank you for joining me on my second episode of my podcast series, Wallflower Findings about mental health. It is currently 11:30 at night and way past this grandma's bedtime, but it doesn't matter because I've loved every aspect of doing this and I'm totally ready, so here goes nothing. Actually, very first thing I want to talk about is my first episode had more of a serious tone to it because, for one, I was a bit nervous, and two, I intentionally made it that way because I want people to know that I'm very serious about what I'm doing and more serious about why I'm doing all of this. I want people to understand that this, again, is not about me having an opinion of life. There's enough opinions out there already on my newsfeed alone. This is actually about providing different perspectives from a wide variety of lenses, from different fields, from all corners of the world, to help you realize what your potential really is and why. If you truly feel right now that you could be doing a lot more with your time, I'm here to tell you that you're most certainly right, and I implore you to do what you can with what you have in order to figure out first why you might feel that way, but also how you can begin to step out of your comfort zone to explore what does feel right for you. Remember, no matter where you are in life, it's never too late to do this, and it starts at the most basic level, so anyone can do this. If you missed the introduction episode, I connected fundamental facts, ideas, patterns from physics, neurology, psychiatry, spirituality, history, and nutrition to drive the point home that everything you focus on and do is critical to your success. And the key to your potential lies way outside of the things most of us tend to focus on nowadays in this information-driven era. So in summary of that episode, all of you in your entirety and what you do matters. And even though your history may have determined where you are now, your history will never define who you are. As long as 1, you acknowledge you can't change your past, 2, you learn to accept yourself as you are, and 3, you allow yourself to grow. Since I'm all about sticking to basics, the very first topic I want to discuss is attention. Actually, I'm going to be spending 2 episodes talking about attention because it is one of our most basic functions as humans, and it just so happens to be one of the most powerful ones we have. In this episode, I'll discuss what our attention alone is capable of, depending on how we use it. And in the next one, I'll break down the nature and structure of our attention, including the value of mind wandering, and how we can regain control of all of it in order to maximize this potential we all have. I'm excited because I'm already getting to reference one of my favorite books, Focus by Daniel Goleman. Again, the goal is to help you understand that whatever it is you want to do, and even if you don't know what that is yet, and even if you do and it happens to be a wild and crazy dream that people laugh at you for, can definitely be achieved by you or anyone. It's all a matter of learning how to see the process of success differently. So now that there's a basic understanding on the importance of individual perception from episode 1, it's time to focus on taking the tiny next step, and that's taking a hard look at the things that we gaze our attention on. Since this entire series revolves around connecting dots, I'll start with how I first realized how crazy amazing this all works through my own experience. So, a bit of a story. Up until the fall after I graduated college, I lived a very linear life. Okay, I kind of explained this before. So I did what I was told. I studied enough to pass my classes and no more. I did only what I thought others were expecting from me, yada, yada, yada. For the longest time, I had no idea why I was so angry and frustrated with myself. I used to snap at the most pointless things that were said to me, and my reactions were often harsh to the point where I know I hurt people in the process, and it's people that I was supposed to have cared about. And so, why was I so incredibly unhappy when compared to others at a very reasonable life? Well, after taking a long time, I realized that during this time, I truly felt I had zero choice in anything I ever did up until that point. And it came as no surprise that the second I moved out for college, my impulsiveness skyrocketed. So again, no idea how to make decisions, so everything I did was on impulse. I'm talking about The food I ate in college, the things I shopped for, the debts I incurred as a result, the endless hours I poured myself watching shows that I can hardly remember now, and the list honestly goes on and on. What I did is I effectively hid my anger in doing all of this, and it wasn't until I was left with nothing that I forced myself to take a hard look as to how I sank so low. Turns out this meant that I had to accept some super harsh truths about myself and some of the decisions I made and the things in my environment I was allowing to take control of my life at the time. To this day, accepting what I did and did not do for myself is one of the most difficult things I've ever done. As I said before, it all started to change as soon as I hit rock bottom. So this was after I left my abusive relationship and came back home heartbroken, dead-ridden, with no dream job that was supposed to give me security for the rest of my life. And it was at this point in time that I decided I had to start thinking differently and doing differently if I ever wanted to avoid sinking any lower than I already was. After looking at my past, I concluded that the only way I could start changing things is by learning how to make more careful decisions, especially if I'm trying to live on my own. So while all of this turmoil was going on in my head, I had taken kind of a random job at a title company, which was a position suggested by one of my best friends. So for those of you who don't know, a title company's main job is the search and ensuring of a property, the title of a property being sold or refinanced, as well as the closing, the physical closing where the whole process is finalized. So I worked at this first company for a little over 2 years, and I actually ended up being let go in the end for confronting the vice president about my manager's drinking problem at work. And it just so happens that I got let go right before my vacation was supposed to start. So honestly, I was pretty pissed and traumatized. Nonetheless, I had very little time to feel sorry for myself because I could not afford to not have a job. Thankfully, though, a little bit before being let go, a coworker that had just switched companies, he told me that the local title company that he was now working for was looking to hire a Spanish-speaking person. So I immediately jumped to the offer and applied and got an interview with the vice president of this local company. So in this moment, I clearly decided that things had to be different from here on out. And I've heard countless times from all over the place that you get what you focus on. I hear that a lot. I'm like, okay, all right, cool, all good. And so I was like, okay, I'm making it a point for me to take the time to carefully think about what I wanted and focus on finding ways to get me closer to that point. Still not knowing quite where I belonged, I knew that didn't matter. All that mattered was just taking the first step, just taking one step at a time. So I went to this interview with the vice president and I spent over an hour in that interview. But this was different than any other interview I've ever had. Despite being nervous and unsure of what the new job could hold, I was sure of one thing. I needed more money and I needed it fast. I finally started living on my own, which was the best decision I've ever made. And it turns out that being an adult is pretty expensive, especially when you don't have roommates to split costs with. So in the interview, I told the vice president all of this and admitted I was having a hard time trying to live on my own. I mentioned that I didn't want to stick to a handful of processes also in a job because I knew I would get bored and unproductive after repeating the same thing so many times. And I also said that I would prefer to learn the whole process of the title industry's line of work so that I could jump in and help anyone or anywhere whenever needed. Because the more I know the structure and nature of the job, the better I can help people out. Then boom, 2 weeks later, I'm extremely thankful to have been placed in an office, having been surrounded by 4 of the strongest, most independent, intelligent, happy and bubbly women I have ever had the pleasure of meeting. Every single day I was around them they slowly started to make me feel that I could be as awesome as they were, but in my own way. And they let me know that how much they believed in me. I don't think they know how much I truly appreciate and miss every single one of them because it is through surrounding yourself with these types of people that will get you to believe you can achieve anything. So fast forward to 11 months later, and I was offered my own office and a raise along with it. I was ecstatic because I had just manifested exactly what I asked for not even a year earlier. Being bilingual, part of what I spent my time doing was reaching out to bilingual realtors and loan officers in order to introduce myself with the hopes of being able to close Hispanics in their own language. When I started doing this, though, it slowly came to my attention how many Hispanics in particular were completely unaware of the home selling and buying process here in the U.S. And some of the stories that I came across and heard from these people, just for simply not knowing what the process is, were absolutely horrifying. So as time went on in my office, I began to feel unsettled again. Helping my coworkers and having my own office was great, but now I began to see that there was a much bigger need out there for the knowledge I had acquired of the home buying process and being able to speak Spanish fluently. So not long after, I decided again that now I wanted to focus on helping these people understand the process to avoid messy and unnecessary situations. Then something super unexpected happened. So the company that I was working for had made the decision to close down my office and move me to a different location. At first, I was in a bit of shock because it sort of came out of nowhere. I no longer had my own office, and they just came in and announced the decision had been made. So my mind was fairly at ease after the VP came up to me and told me how I'm staying with the company, and now I'm completely free to solely pursue the Hispanic market. Figuratively speaking, my mouth dropped at the moment, but honestly, I didn't think twice. I immediately accepted and began my new pursuit. And in doing this, one of my absolute favorite activities that I continue doing to this day is holding classes for the purpose of educating people on the process. I've gotten to work with different realtor teams as well as loan officers, all bilingual, exactly for this purpose. Gathering classes every month, completely free, teaching almost solely Spanish speakers about the home buying and selling process. One day, I decided to attend a class that I wasn't helping teach myself, but I wanted to go because I knew the director of community affairs for Reese Nichols was going to attend. And for the past couple of months, I got to know a little bit about him through other people, and I knew we shared the same goal. So I went to this class, and afterwards I walked up to him and introduced myself, and shortly after we ended up setting a coffee appointment for the next week. During this meeting, he confirmed that we did in fact share the same goals, and a week later I was offered a new position with his company. The craziest part is I could now, or what they offered was for me to focus exclusively on helping him in educating the Hispanic market while also using the knowledge I had accumulated of the closing process to go around all of our offices to help different closers when needed or when they were gone. So, in other words, this new company offered me the position I exactly imagined I wanted in every sense, and even offered higher pay. On top of that, right before being offered this fairly fitting job, I was also offered a position with an incredible real estate team who ended up even offering to help pay for my real estate license. Not only that, but the home builder I had been working closely with when I had my own office even told me that if I did ever get my real estate license, I could reach out to him to see the possibility of becoming a part of his team. As incredible and as truly grateful as I was for these offers, something in my gut told me that for the time being, educating a clearly underserved community was where I needed to go for now. So at this point, I knew it couldn't have been a coincidence. How were these things that I was thinking of in my head, how were they just appearing in front of me? Also during this time, I had been going to the gym steadily, and I'm not a certified trainer or nutritionist to this day. So with the research I had done on Google, YouTube, and Instagram, I had started to see or to notice significant positive changes, not only in my overall health, but in my physique. And really, just for